Burnout is a bitch. In this episode, we're going to show you how to spot it, diagnose it, and get your agency back, because burnout can be insidious. It can sneak up on you. It doesn't always announce itself. And so we don't want you to struggle with it unnecessarily, as I have. I'm going to be sharing some of my recent experiences with burnout, how it showed up for me, what ended up happening, the good and the bad, and some ways that I found helpful to deal with it, and hopefully you'll find it insightful. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Bros. This is season 2 of our comeback. We are very happy to be here. Back in June, my wife and I, Tracy, we flew Daniel up here from Arizona to Cannon Beach so we could record some of these episodes together. And so we've been sober now for a few weeks after some cycles of relapse over the last 2.5 years since the show ended back in 2023. So we're back, and we've got some Bureau, which is our non-alcoholic beer of choice.
This is a shandy style, so refreshing, kind of flavorful, fruit juices, hops, some natural ingredients.
Yeah, shandy is their new product in their line. It's 30% juices and flavors, and then what did I say? 30%?
You said 30%.
It's 30% Bureau, and then the rest is like the juices and flavors.
30% Bureau, 100% delicious.
Yeah, that's one of their taglines, 100% brilliant, 100% Bureau. Yeah, so...
We're not endorsed by them.
Not yet.
Yet. So, let's talk about burnout.
Yeah.
You've got a really significant story in burnouts that definitely was a slow burn, and it did sneak up on you.
As we talked about in the last episode, which was on rejection, I say, is like a spark, and burnout is the house fire if it goes unchecked. So tune into the previous episode if you want to hear some context that leads up to burnout. But over the past 3 years, as a part of the work that I was doing as an online marketer, I was doing a lot of outreach for client acquisition.
It was a full-on grind. It was a full-time grind.
Doing outreach is like a full-time job.
The way you were doing it was a full-time grind.
Because when I had clients, of course, you have to fulfill the deliverables for retainer projects. So monthly retainers for ongoing projects, 6 to 9 months. Obviously, that's a job. But when you're not doing that, you need new clients to generate income to sustain your living. And that's a full-time job. So I felt, and this is a part of rejection leading to burnout, I felt a lot of isolation. It's a lonely game, working for yourself and doing outreach. It very much felt like I was alone.
You literally were.
I literally was.
In a room with a locked door.
Yeah. Yeah, the last 3 years I was doing outreach, and it was thousands of rejections. What it looks like from the outside is that you're in the office and you're working and you're trying. But what it feels like on the inside, when the pressure's on from all angles, it looks like irritability, avoidance, and ultimate doom is just around the corner. And what that can lead to, like, for me, it was an honest low point, which was despair and even suicide ideation. I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah.
When you have like rejection upon rejection, you start to create stories and what they mean, and that becomes your identity. And then you become, through the loneliness, it's despair, and you think, what's the point? Giving up. I mean, life is hard, And so it gets to the point of suicide ideation. That's how bad it can get.
Well, and in your case specifically, right, you were literally in a room by yourself doing all this outreach. And so the rejection, which was oftentimes silent, can feel cavernous, can feel just like this huge chasm of despair and loneliness.
Yeah. At the time, I didn't know that I was getting burned out and was, in fact, burned out. Towards the end, which wasn't too long ago, it was in early June, I realized I was burned out, and I happened to come across a post on social media that was talking about some research, original research done on burned out that was shared public, and I found that, and I took a lot of notes on it, and it was very helpful just to become aware. And so I realized I was burned out. I was more aware of the context surrounding it, and that's when I decided that I just needed to pull myself out of it because no one was coming to save me. So I had to, through awareness, work my way out of it. And part of that was committing to not doing what was causing burnout, outreach, and taking a new direction, which ended up being the revival of this podcast.
Yeah.
And so I want to really just kind of share some of the things that I learned about burnout to help other people.
And I think one of the important things about learning about it, because this was a concept that you kind of heard about, but you didn't really know the mechanism, the mechanics of it. So say you have a shoulder pain. So you have some kind of ailment in your body and it's bothering you and it's bothering you and you don't know where it's coming from, why it's there in the first place. Once you learn about what's happening there, then you know how to take care of it. Then you know how to address it.
Because without that, it's just confusion.
Yeah, and it's just constant pain.
Pain, and I don't know the source of it, the manifestation of it, or what to do about it.
Yeah.
So obviously that doesn't sound very helpful.
No.
And it wasn't. And if it wasn't obvious, just because we're primarily a show about sobriety, one of the problems of that is coping mechanisms. And if you're trying to stay sober, then you're going to relapse because it's the only comfort in a sea of painful
unknowns, and you know what it's like to crack a few, you can always go back to that.
Yeah, and I did. But I don't want to, and I'm not going to at this point. So let me just highlight some of the research that I found. I was actually scrolling on Instagram. There's an account that I follow called Open. They are a mindfulness and meditation and health and wellness platform. They're based in Venice Beach, California, but they also offer classes for breath work, meditation, and yoga. Highly recommend it. You can download the app. It's really amazing, very helpful. So that's Open. I'll put the link in the description. And they posted about burnout and they were citing the source. And so I checked out the source and that's where I got this information from. It's a 3-part diagnostic to figure out what part of the 3 dimensions of burnout is the loudest for you. It's called the Maslow Burnout Inventory Tradition. And it's a specific way of defining and measuring burnout that emerged from psychologist. I think she's a psychologist. It sounds right. Christina Maslow. She did research on emotionally demanding work and became the dominant research standard through the Maslow Burnout Inventory, or MBI. Her core claim is that burnout is a work-related psychological syndrome characterized by 3 dimensions that move together but do not always co-occur. And so the 3 dimensions are this: exhaustion, and that's energy depletion, like you're depleted and everything costs more than it should. The second dimension is cynicism, or depersonalization. That can look like mental distance, treating people like objects, like you don't care, and people feel like problems.
It's a very narcissistic way of experiencing the world. It's like a tunnel vision. You get into that kind of headset and you're looking out of this tunnel of your own suffering, of your own burnout, and everything has to do about exactly how you're feeling, people become problems. Everything becomes a problem.
Yeah, and like I said at the top, it's kind of sneaky because I wasn't aware of it really, but I was becoming cynical at the end of 2026, early 2027.
Well, we're still in 20.
Fucking hell.
This is coming out at a very future date.
Got my goddamn years wrong. Jesus Christ. At the end of last year, beginning of this year, I was becoming more and more cynical, but I wasn't really aware of it. People were becoming problems. Like, I was just projecting onto even strangers that they were just a threat, potentially. Even the people closest to you, like me, for my wife Tracy, like, it causes relationship problems big time. Like, true or not isn't really the point, but the point is through the lens of cynicism because of burnout, now your wife is a potential threat. You know, she's becoming a problem.
Any little thing that she does,
Yeah.
could be a pull for attention, a pull for this or that. That's a threat, not just she's not holding a bat over your head.
Yeah.
But it's a threat of your own like personal sovereignty, agency, peace.
And it's not true, but that's the problem. Cynicism. Because I had always, for a long time, kind of been a skeptic. I was skeptical, and maybe that's a lack of trust in people, basically. But that's kind of another conversation. But my general skepticism was now
Ramped up.
Yeah, rammed up and morphing into I was becoming a cynic. Okay, so the third dimension of burnout is reduced efficacy, reduced personal accomplishment. That is feeling ineffective, like I can't win and my effort doesn't matter. Now, when I read that, I read myself in all of these three dimensions. That was me at the time. I was exhausted. Again, this is from 3 years of outreach and rejection. The spark was now catching fire and becoming all-consuming. And actually, that's why it's called burnout. The spark was turning into a house fire, and I was getting burned out. I was exhausted, I was cynical, and I was basically ineffective. I would go into the office to try and do outreach, but because of all the distortion, I literally couldn't even do outreach hardly. I'd be lucky to get in 5 outreach numbers a day, which is not enough to get the reps in to get a new client to put out the fire and solve the problem. So now I'm in that downward spiral where it's like I'm ineffective and everything's just getting worse. How do you pull out of it? Serious question. Like, how does one pull out of that? Well, there's lots of ways. It depends on the situation. One way to pull out of it is just to keep hurting yourself and drink and hide, but it doesn't help.
Helps momentarily.
It
doesn't solve the root issue.
Not at all.
And actually heal from burnout and avoid burnout.
Yeah. So I was deep in burnout, and again, according to Christina Maslach's research and the tradition of MBI, you might have all three, but usually one leads, and you don't have to have all three. You might be exhausted and burned out. You might be cynical and burned out. You might not have reduced efficiency. So that's why awareness is so important, just to like look at these three things in your life. And that just is like, so it really does come down to mindfulness and being aware and present. But a lot of people aren't, and it's easy to get carried away and lost in the pain, and life gets confusing. And I was so stressed out from all kinds of things, the pressure, the financial pressure, because the more days that would go by where I didn't get a client, the more that the savings account was going down and our runway was getting shorter. So the money's going down, the runway's getting shorter, the pressure's increasing to make things work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make things work because no one else is going to. Literally, no one else is going to get me a client.
No.
So it's like, but then it's like, all right, so what do? Do I got to go give my hours to a local restaurant to be a dishwasher so I can earn minimum wage? But that won't even like really cover rent, so it's not really a solution.
Not for you.
Not for me. Although a lot of people, might say, just you got to be responsible and go get a job somewhere. But I was really committed to the path of being an independent agent.
Yeah, and so these solutions to burnout, as it pertains to you and how you operate, these are your own. How I deal with burnout and how many other people, deal with burnout, those solutions will pertain to them, kind of using a similar strategy of just like recognizing and analyzing the situation.
Yeah. The stress was stacking up and it became my baseline. Like just life was just stressful.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy, genuinely. I think that's true to say. Like I wasn't really happy, and it got to the point where not too long ago, people would just ask me on the street, like regular interactions you have with people. You go to the store, the cashier asks how you're doing. You see somebody in the community in the store and you pass them by in an aisle and they say, how's it going? And I had cognitive dissonance big time because it happens in the second they ask me, how you doing? And in my mind, I'm thinking, fucking horrible. Like, everything sucks. I'm mad. But then they don't want that though. They want the generic response, the script, the social, what people always say. They expect you to repeat the script. They say, how are you doing? You say good. Right?
Yeah. You can't get too honest in that kind of like minute interaction, but you say something like, well, I'm alive.
Yeah. And then they're awkward and then everything's awkward and then you just walk away. So it doesn't really work. And I really object vehemently to the standard script that people just take for granted of saying, how's it going? I really think we should ban it. Like we shouldn't ask people how you're doing.
Or at least we, should allow for
sorry, I'm extreme.
A wide variety of responses. But I mean, that place right there, like burnout and cynicism, is the type that, would make me want to put my hat on super low, curve it over my eyes before I go into a grocery store, if I go out anywhere. The small community that I live in where so many people know me, but I don't want to answer those questions at all.
Because I just can't be honest with them. You're forced to.
I don't feel like talking about it.
You're forced to say, fine, I'm fine. But you're not. And the fact of the matter is a lot of people aren't. Like the other day I was doing a little bit of research on keyword search trends online over the last 5 years. And among the highest keywords that are being researched by people in the United States over the last 5 years is stress and anxiety. That's fact. That's what people are looking up. So what that literally means is like people are in their homes or wherever they're going online and they're typing in words related to stress and anxiety because they're looking for, what are they looking for?
Solutions.
Yeah. Because they're feeling stressed and anxious.
Yeah, we're so detached from ourselves. We're so detached from like a community that we have to, by ourselves, type into whatever search engine. What do I do about anxiety? Solutions for anxiety, solutions for stress. How do I manage my stress?
And I'd be willing to wager that a lot of people searching for stress and anxiety solutions it's because it's related, and at least in some part, to maybe they're burned out. A lot of people are burned out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They get to the point where they're like, I have to get some help. So I'm going to research this. Like, what the fuck do I do about this?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to go away months ago. I thought it was going to go away weeks ago. It's not going away.
So the danger of that is you don't notice until you're in the ditch, until the house fire is consuming you. And you might have to hit some real low point
You imagine like being in your house and it's like on fire. There's like a corner of your house that's on fire. And you're like, it'll go away. I'm just gonna blow on it, and it doesn't go away. And you like reach the point where like, no, this house is burning down. I need to Google how do I put my house fire out.
Yeah. So burnout can be hiding in your life as various forms of productivity, procrastination, a numbness, an incapacity, and an isolation of some kind. Maybe you sneak off and hang out in the bathroom for 30 minutes.
You do whatever you got to do.
Yeah. So I really do want to like help people. And I think the first step in helping them is just awareness. This 3-dimensional burnout matrix.
Sure.
Through awareness, just tune in with yourself. And you have to give yourself that gift of even a few seconds or minutes of time and space throughout your days to check in with yourself. Because otherwise, I mean, I found it in my life, we all can go on autopilot and be unconscious and just go about our days. You're busy. A lot of people commute. And so you're driving, then you got a family, and then you got work, then you got to go through the drive-thru and get a snack. So you're like shoving food in your face. All of a sudden, you're like emotionally trying to fill a void, but you don't, maybe it's from burnout, but you don't know it. But you're on autopilot. You tailgate the person in front of you on the highway. You get real mad. You go home. You're not too happy with your wife, and then you want to watch some TV. You're tired.
By yourself,
Downstairs in the basement. Through the gift of time, space, peace, check in with yourself. It's not asking much. You don't have to, I'm not saying pick up a meditation practice, although that is helpful.
yeah, that'd be amazing if a person has the time and energy and space and opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just talking seconds to minutes. Check in with yourself. Take one breath. And are you exhausted? Are you cynical? Has your efficiency been reduced in whatever you're doing in life? You might be burned out. And so from there, what do? Before I really get into anything else that you might do, I just want to say that burnout is a system mismatch. You don't have to fix everything. You can just fix one thing. Christina Mazak has some things that you can poke around in to see if you can regain some control in your work life. You might be working as a solo independent, or you might be working for another job for someone
At a restaurant.
Yeah. Any job. Take one thing and look at it, like your workload. Do you have too much demand put on you and not enough recovery? Do you always feel like you're behind? Workload might be causing burnout. Or there's control. You can look at how much control do you have in the job that you do. You're responsible for outcomes you can't actually influence. The control that you have in whatever's delegated to you. Because if you don't have control in what's expected of you, then that can lead to burnout. Or there's reward. Maybe you're putting in effort, but the payoff never comes or never lands. Maybe you're not getting rewarded for your efforts. That can lead to resentment.
Yeah, being jaded.
Yeah.
And reward, that could just be acknowledgement of what you do.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be you get a plaque for going to
fucking parade.
And then there's community. You feel alone in it, or there's constant friction with people, your coworkers. That was always a big one for me when I was working in other businesses and other jobs years ago. Aspect of the community. I always found that people were kind of like out to get each other, and it was tribal and bickering between front of house and back of house. And maybe, that's leading to burnout. And then there's fairness. Are the rules rigged, or do they feel fair? Maybe the efforts and results don't match what you see others get. So if you don't feel like things are going fair in the work that you do and the team that you're on, that can lead to burnout.
Yeah, if you feel like everything that you do, every effort that you put out is futile.
Yeah.
This goes with what you just said in like the last little bullet point. If there's like a large degree of futility in your work environment and your life in general, but you have to keep on going, I mean, that's going to lead to burnout so quick.
I would feel that as exhaustion, and then cynicism, and then inefficiency because I'd be self-sabotaging and be like, fine, well, I'm not going to
Hey, give up.
I'm not going to clean that table as good as it could be cleaned.
Yeah.
You think I'm going to clean under that table? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Fuck you. All right. So finally, there's values. And this is one of the systems that you can use to identify burnout. Values. Maybe it's like what you're doing clashes with what you actually believe is right. You might be asked to do something that is not in alignment with values that you might hold.
Happens all the time. Yeah, 100%. You're like asked to do something. You're like, I don't see the point of that. I don't actually agree with that decision because of my own values, or I don't think that jives with company policy, being forced to do something.
Yeah, so the point of sharing those 6 different systems is for you to find if there's a mismatch. And if one is punching you in the face, you might want to just unpack it and see if it's causing exhaustion, cynicism, or ineffectiveness. Again, going unchecked, it could just ruin your life and ruin the life of everyone around you. It's kind of my experience. I mean, to be frank, the problems that were going on with me because of all of this, years of rejection and the downward spiral of burnout, being married, living in the same house with Tracy, obviously it affects the relationship.
Right.
Almost divorced several times. Miscommunications. It's complex.
Yeah, it's super complex.
It's hard to find a way out.
It is, especially in your experience, your particular niche, right? Where it's harder for you to just shake things up and do something else. Because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
In a place like mine, if I'm really over what I'm doing at my work, I can go get a job somewhere else. I'm okay just going in to get a job. Although that being said, I've been with this restaurant for 15 years. But like, there have been several times, most recently, just a couple months ago, I was reaching critical burnout. I felt like everybody there needed something from me all the time, and I couldn't just focus on what I was doing. It was like people from the kitchen, people on staff on the front of the house coming to me like, where's this? Where's this? What do I do about this? What do I do about this? What do I do about this? And we did have a staff meeting, and I was able to, to divulge myself with some of these responsibilities and just be like, you know what, you guys, like, I can't be that person anymore. I have been for 15 years, but I just can't really do this anymore. You've got to start thinking for yourself so that I can have some of my peace back.
So it sounds like you vocalizing that delegation was a solution. It sounds because like you were dealing with in the 6 systems of burnout here, you were dealing with a workload, which was over too much workload.
Yeah, and part of it was I didn't feel like I was being compensated enough for it.
Fairness.
Yeah. I mean, I was getting thanked all the time, but
reward.
Yeah, the reward, it was like, I didn't get a raise for any of this stuff. It's just kind of expected of me. And I'm done. And I'm just kind of, I went to the boss and I was like, there are certain things I'm just not going to do anymore. I don't take that responsibility.
No.
And that really helps. Another thing that I've started to do to avoid that burnout for me personally in this context, because I have a job, it's making me money. I'm living. I'm just fine. One thing I can do to avoid that burnout is exercise and getting back on a health routine. I have had a daily meditation practice now for years. That really helps. But sometimes I get up in the morning and it's like, fuck that. And I just have to fucking run. I got to go out there and run. I started working with a physical therapist and personal trainer, to get out there and just move that energy out of my body, which increases like the dopamine and the serotonin precursors and like all these physiological cascade that creates incredible benefits so that I can actually show up feeling a lot better. But if I still maintained all that responsibility, the problem's still there. I can go work out, go for a run, whatever, and feel good for a little while. But if I show up and it's still the same, so if I have that opportunity to divest myself of some of those responsibilities that I'm not getting compensated for, that I'm not getting rewarded for enough, then I can make a change instead of dealing with that and not changing anything, but getting hammered at night. Because that's always one of the solutions that you and I return to is like, okay, dealing with like, the efficacy at work is like going down and down and down, but I can still, I get hammered at night, and still feel okay for at least a little while and go back to it the next day. But if I'm not going to be doing that, then what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. The meditation practice, the physical activity, feeling better about myself, changing what I can in my work environment.
Yeah, so burnout is causing feelings in people. And so there's two different approaches I hear in that. One is to regulate our nervous system instead of numbing it through negative coping mechanisms like alcohol. We regulate our nervous system in the mind and the body, and through, like, as we've talked about in the last couple of episodes, the RAIN framework. Mentally, you can pause. If you're not just going to straight up meditate, you can run the framework like real quickly. RAIN: recognize, accept, investigate, non-identify. And you can check out the last couple episodes where we talk more about what the RAIN method is and how to use it, or subscribe to the newsletter. We send out information about it all there. It's on Substack.
Yeah, that'll be like in a text format that, you can just go back to and read. You can like print it off and have it right there.
Yeah, print it out, put it up by your desk and stuff. So that's like the mind regulation. And
with practice, can take 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah. And then like you were talking about exercising to regulate our systems, we just get moving, because I've done really poorly with that, and it's not a good thing. I know a lot of people struggle with that. But to get up and just move your body, then you can deal with the feelings that are being caused from your workload or lack of reward showing up. Now you can deal with that effectively. The second part, after you do those things, is then you got to get to a solution. And for you, that might be actually vocalizing to your superior or team that what I need to do is delegate some of this. So you regulate. It sounds like I heard that you did some self-regulation, and then a solution was to vocalize the solution to your team. In your case, it was delegation.
Yeah.
In another case, it would be something else.
Which I had the privilege of being able to do. Not everybody does that. The person at the movie theater that's like sweeping up all the popcorn and trash, after a movie, they don't necessarily have the opportunity to go up and be like, hey, I'm feeling burned out. I'm not feeling rewarded enough.
That's true. And then other teams, they actually have HR departments. And in your case, if you do, what you would do is go to the HR to figure out a solution after you self-regulate your emotions, so you don't bring them into the conversation.
Yeah. Up until then, I was HR.
Yeah. That's cool.
Underpaid HR.
Not cool.
And another thing is, like, I know as far as like you were talking about most research topics, anxiety, stress, burnout, which is very true. Another thing that people don't need oftentimes is coffee. And that was one of my go-tos at work, was just like, there were many times when I would have nearly half a gallon of coffee at work. I'm just like, I'm getting tired, I'm getting sluggish, I'm feeling burnt out, so I'm just going to like slam another cup of coffee. But that's only going to exacerbate the problem and actually make it far worse physiologically, mentally, emotionally, as it can be so dysregulating at a certain point. And so I personally make it a regular habit to be including several times a day adaptogenic Chinese herbs, that can really help with stress management.
Yeah. It's like, if we're looking at solutions, it just sounds like always the holistic lifestyle in little simple ways. I mean, I'm thinking like sunshine, get outside. A lot of people are indoors. A lot of people live in cities where they don't have proper access to a nice spot outside where they can get some sun on their skin. The buildings are blocking out the sun and stuff. But I really think it's good to just like get a little bit of fresh air and sunshine on the skin.
Yeah, when we're able to.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I'm talking a little bit weird right now, or I sound weird when I'm talking, is because I'm having hesitations as the words are coming out of my mouth, because I meet so many people that have the fear of the sun because of propaganda in the entertainment industry and news outlets. I hear, and parents too, when we take our kid to the playground, people using sunscreen.
Yeah, in Oregon, on the Oregon coast. That's ridiculous.
Even here, I know. It's crazy. I've seen it a few times at the park. Parents are just putting the sunscreen all over their kids, especially the tourists.
Totally unnecessary and super toxic.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm kind of laughing inside when I say this, is like, it's also going to help you for a holistic lifestyle is to get outside and get a little bit of sunshine on your skin. It's funny to me because it's true, but so many people might hear that and be like, wait, I thought the sun was bad for me.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous that the propaganda machine has made us question that.
Yeah, but I don't care about the propaganda machine. I know that it is lies and it's not true, so I'm just going to stand by what it says.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I also wanted to mention that as we talked a little bit about physical exercise, a friend of mine works in Eugene, and she works for the city. She's a homelessness advocate or unhoused advocate. I'm not sure the totally proper term for that. But she's not really able to change much about her job. And I know that she's experienced elements of burnout and being overworked and everything, but she has taken up running.
Control. That's the control.
Yeah, agency, control. And she only had a certain degree of that. And so she's taken up running, and I think she just completed her first 10K a couple weeks ago. And I know that that's like a huge success story in her own life, as far as like something she can plug into to feel really great about, that is her own, that she has 100% agency over.
Mm.
Most people don't have any kind of control over their lives, or they don't take control of any part of their lives. But if somebody that's a part of exercise, is like, that is my own. I have 100% agency, control over this aspect of my life. That is my own.
All right. Well, so yeah, burnout, it's not just, for addiction recovery. It shows up in parenting, relationships, jobs, independent creators like me, caregivers, and then there's money pressure and just the stress of life. And so people are dealing with it, man. So I just want to share a little bit about that. It's not a flaw. It's a state of being. So you can just take notice of it as early as possible. Map it out. Find one lever that you can pull. Get a rep on it, get your agency back. That's my message.
Yeah, get some agency back. Find something that works for you.
Yeah. For me, that was just stopping what was causing the problem and doing something else. I was trying to manage circumstances that were becoming toxic. And so I had to break away and start creating opportunities. And that's what this podcast literally was and is for me. It's an opportunity that I'm co-creating with Daniel.
Yeah, we don't pretend that we have all the answers or solutions to burnout, because there are situations and conditions where the burnout is just not going to stop, not for the foreseeable future anyway. And, I'm thinking of like a single mom who's in a domestic violence situation, and she's got to like get out and like go to a shelter. Like, that burnout's not going to last that burnout is not going to end anytime necessarily very soon. And I don't pretend to speak to that. I don't pretend to speak to those situations where the burnout is not going to end for a long time. I think what you and I are talking about, or for those who are listening, who do have a modicum of agency, we don't pretend to speak for everybody. But for those people who are listening, there are things that they can shift in their life. And that's what we're doing here. We're talking, this is mostly about sobriety and then deals with addiction. These are people that oftentimes do have a choice, multiple choices oftentimes in their lives, to be able to avoid burnout, to be able to deal with rejection, and these things that we've been beginning to talk about.
Yeah. So there's something else I want to mention as we close this out, and I want you to subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. What you get for subscribing to that is a free gift in the welcome email. It's 8 clarity frameworks or mental models that you can use quickly to help you come to decisions on a problem that you're dealing with in your life. It's one of the things that helped me earlier this year, and I want to share that with you. What it is, it's an AI mega prompt, and it's long. What you do is you copy and paste it into your preferred AI chat, like ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever. I created the prompt, I give it to you. What you do is you just paste the prompt into the AI, and it's instructed to ask you some questions about what's going on in your life, and you just respond, I'm dealing with this and I'm not sure what to do. It could be a problem at work. I'm struggling and I don't know what to do. I need to come to a decision. I'm hesitating and unsure. And you just tell it, type that into the AI, and I've trained it on 8 psychological frameworks or mental models that help us to look through problems through various lenses, and so then it will walk you through, here's how you should look at this problem, and you might want to come to a decision based on this way of looking at it. For me, it was just like kind of a therapy session, like having a psychologist with me. It's a free gift for you for signing up to the newsletter. I'd love to hear if you use it, how it goes for you, so you can share your experience with us on Substack. Always welcome to comment here on the YouTube videos. Find us on Instagram. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
Well, thanks for having that conversation with me.
Yeah.
And thanks for watching. Okay? Stay free. Fuck off.